A 19-year-old boy hides in the tall grass, holding his breath. He watches helplessly as armed soldiers drag his father and brother out of their home. The year is 1864, the bloodiest days of the American Civil War, North Carolina. These soldiers weren't ordinary raiders, they were government men. They wanted to force the local Lumbee tribe, Henry's people, to work as their slaves. But Henry's family refused to bow. There was only one punishment for that. They tied them up in the dry dirt. A makeshift firing squad raised their rifles. The deafening crack of gunfire echoed across the farm. The bodies slumped to the ground. The boy didn't scream, he didn't cry. He just stared into the lifeless eyes of his father. In that exact second, on that blood-soaked dirt, Henry Berry Lowry stopped being a boy. Let's perform an autopsy on this mind. When a human being witnesses the unjust and brutal slaughter of their own bloodline, it causes a catastrophic psychological fracture known as a moral injury. The brain's belief in a fair and just world is instantly shattered. For Henry, this trauma did not trigger the flight response. It triggered hyperarousal and a tactical obsession. The neurological pathways responsible for obeying societal laws completely withered away. He no longer saw the government as a legitimate authority. He saw them as a pathogen, and pathogens must be eradicated. Henry didn't just run into the swamp to hide. He turned the swamp into his war room. He became the apex predator of his people. He gathered a heavily armed gang and began systematically targeting the local elite. He raided their massive plantations, stole their riches, and distributed food to the starving poor who had been crushed by the government. He was a Robin Hood, with a sniper rifle. But if you stood in his way, there was no trial. There was only the grave. When the local sheriff tried to arrest his men, Henry put a bullet in his forehead. When the government placed a massive bounty on his head, ruthless bounty hunters marched into the swamp, but they never marched out. The authorities grew terrified. In a desperate move, the police committed an unforgivable mistake. They kidnapped the wives of the Lowry gang members. They expected Henry to surrender. Instead, he showed them exactly what their worst nightmare looked like. Henry emerged from the swamp with his heavily armed men and walked directly into the estate of the most powerful plantation owner in the county. With absolute, maddening calmness, he politely asked the terrified family to serve them breakfast. After eating in dead silence, Henry wiped his mouth, asked for a pen, and left a letter. The letter read, "If our wives are not released within 3 days, the bloodiest times in history will begin right here." He didn't yell, he didn't make a scene, he simply made a promise. The elite were so paralyzed by fear of this swamp ghost that they completely defied their own government and released the women immediately. The bounty on Henry's head was raised to $12,000, an absolute fortune for that time. But no one in the entire country dared to claim it. Then, after pulling off the biggest heist in the county's history and walking away with $22,000 in cash, Henry Berry Lowry did the most terrifying thing of all. He vanished. His body was never found. No one was ever arrested. Not a single trace of him was left behind. He beat the system, exacted his bloody revenge, and faded into the mist. He wasn't just a killer, he was the ultimate masterclass in vengeance. Now, it is time to perform an autopsy on your mind. If you were that boy, standing over your executed family on that blood-soaked dirt, what would you do? Would you quietly wait for the law to bring justice? Or would you turn into a bloodthirsty predator like Henry? Your answer will reveal exactly how your nervous system is wired. Head down to the comments and expose your psychology. Are you a hero or a killer? Drop your answer right now.